Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel. Welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C Race and Strategy Guide. It is Boxing Day as this race gets released, so what kind of Christmas present have PD given us for this week's Daily Race C? Well, we're heading to Daytona Road Course and we are in the Group 4 machinery. We've got 10 laps to get round, tyre wear is at times free, fuel is at times 2, just the racing hard tyres available. There is no mandatory rules in terms of tyres or pit stops. BOP is on, damage is light, it's a rolling start, and slipstream is real. And I've always said that I will never really beat about the bush in these videos. I mean, I don't really have to, so instead of spending 2 minutes to try and tell you that this race is going to be a no-stop sprint race, I shall take 10 seconds at this part in the video. Your tyres are going to wear by around about 15%, you'll burn off about 25% of the fuel. This is pretty much as pure a sprint race as you're going to get in Gran Turismo 7. And yeah, I think it possibly might work out quite well for this race. So instead of showing you the pit stops, showing you a full race run, showing you the tyre wear and the fuel, because it's all pretty negligible and doesn't really need to be commented on, I shall spend the rest of this video guiding you through various cars in Group 4, how they perform, what kind of top speed they've got, and just giving you a kind of comparison of various cars and hopefully giving you an idea as to what will be strong and competitive. And first up, the car we're going to look at is the Nissan GTR. The test itself is fairly simple, 5 laps around Daytona Road Course under race conditions with the tyre wear and the fuel turned on. Gives an idea of what sort of lap time the car's going to do, and we shall measure the top speed as they cross the start finish line. And I do believe that the GTR will be up there as you would expect, but certainly not OP. Solid enough car around the track, a little bit sketchy under braking into turn 1 I did find more often than not. 154 miles an hour as it crossed the start finish line. A 156.6 was its best lap time, although I do believe it would easily have done a 156.3 on that last lap if I had not made a mess of the chicane. Next up we have the Jaguar F-type. Now the sort of thing that stood out about this car with me was just how stable it was on power as you came out of the hairpins. Now Daytona's got turn 1, the horseshoe, then you've got the other hairpin, and then you've got the sort of 90-degree corner onto the back straight, and yeah, you could just floor the Jaguar out there and it just stuck. Crossing the start finish line at 154 miles an hour, which is the same as the Nissan GTR, and it did a 156.457, which is actually faster than our best lap in the GTR, but yeah, pretty much in the same ballpark figure for both of those cars. Next up we've got the Ferrari 458 Italia Gr4 as we come through the bus stop chicane. And one thing I will definitely mention about that chicane is that the track limits have been changed. Now whether they've been changed for the better or the worse will remain to be seen, but you can definitely don't pick up penalties that feel unjust, if you like, under the old the old bus stop chicane. Quite often you feel like you hadn't crossed the white line and you would pick up a half-second penalty. But getting back to the Ferrari seems relatively competitive in comparison to the Nissan GTR and the Jaguar. Crossing the start finish line at 155 miles an hour, so 1 mph quicker than the two previous cars. Best lap a 156.522, which is right in the same ballpark figure as the two previous cars. Next up we've got the Lamborghini Huracan. Now this was a car that I really fancied to be strong around this combination. We drove this car quite a lot at Watkins Glen, so I knew it had kind of good sort of mid-speed acceleration, decent top speed in comparison to the GTR. But that race was a fuel saver, so maybe it didn't quite manage to stretch its legs in the same way, but I did feel this combination would be very strong for the Huracan. Now the Huracan handles really nicely, you can get on the power like you would expect in a 4-wheel drive car. No real dramas with this car, and actually crossed the line here for its last lap with 155.7, significantly faster than any other lap we've done in any other car, but also significantly faster than any other lap we did in the Lamborghini, so possibly a little bit of an outlier. Otherwise the rest of the laps for the Lamborghini were pretty much in the same ballpark as the Nissan GTR, Ferrari and Jaguar prior to it. Next up we've got the McLaren 650S. This was a car that was suggested to me would be quite strong around here because of its top end. Now I can confirm you have to upshift in the McLaren around about 60%. If you don't, you'll actually lose about 3 miles per hour on the straight, which is a lot of time to give up. Now I didn't feel that this car did anything special, but in the last couple of laps it did actually produce some pretty solid lap times. A 56.3, then a 56.4, so it's there and thereabouts. but yeah, it just didn't quite shine to me, this car. But yeah, it's all about the lap time at the end of the day. And in that regard, the McLaren was certainly in the same ballpark figure as the rest of the cars tested so far. Next up we have an FF car. This is the Peugeot RCZ Gr4. Now just, I was not quite picking the cars at random. I had an idea of what cars had good top end, but I do remember that this car was very strong at Monza in GT Sport. So I thought, a car that requires good top end, or does it still have good top end? Well, the answer to that question is no. It actually crosses the start finish line at 151 mph, I do believe, which is significantly down on the rest of the cars. In terms of lap time, coming in with a 156.7 there. Yeah, good few tenths off the rest of the cars tested so far. So yeah, I don't think the RCZ is going to be that competitive, and I don't think you'll see too many of them as the week goes on. Next up we've got the Ford Mustang Gr4. How could we not test the Ford Mustang? This is a car that's quite, has a bit of synergy with the channel. We certainly picked it in GTWS and FIA in the past. And yeah, this car, the surprise about this car, because I know it doesn't have great top end. Now, it's not that far down on the rest of the cars. It's actually in the same kind of figure or same ballpark as the Jaguar and the GTR. But this car in the infield section was absolutely fantastic. I didn't find a car that could actually do the infield any quicker than the Ford Mustang. Good acceleration on this car as well, and the lap times kind of, concurred that this car seemed to be very, very strong. 155.9. Previous lap to that was 156.0, so only beaten in terms of lap time by the Lamborghini, but the Mustang did seem to have a little bit more consistency, so possibly a car to look out for this week. Moving on to the Buggati Veyron. Now this was tested purely because I knew it was going to be very fast on the straights or the banked oval part of the track, but yeah, it just lacks the acceleration in the infield. It lacks the acceleration pretty much out of every corner. Big heavy car, the Buggati Veyron, 200 kilograms more than any other Group 4 car. Going to cross the line here for a 157.1. We do cross the line at 157 miles per hour, so 2 miles per hour faster than anything else. In fact, only 1 mile per hour faster than McLaren. But yeah, the lap time's just not quite there. I actually gave this run up after 4 laps, thinking, yeah, it's not going to be the car. Now, I do believe that somebody could probably do something pretty special with the Buggati Veyron. One of the aliens will come out, absolutely nail the middle sector or the infield, and possibly put in a very strong lap for the Veyron, but I don't think it's going to be the car for 99% of the player base. Moving on to the Toyota Supra from Group 4. Not a car you see very often, but again, I had been told that this one is very good when it comes to top end. Didn't really kind of materialise too much, to be honest with you. It does have good top end, to be fair. I think it crosses the line here at 155. In terms of lap time, coming in just a couple of attempts short of most of the cars that we tested. So rounding thereabouts, 2 attempts over a 2-minute lap is not a lot. But yeah, it just felt quite heavy, felt quite clunky through the corners. That the Toyota Supra seemed to lack a little bit of acceleration. So I'd kind of have ruled that car out just a little bit. Moving on to the Hyundai Genesis. This is going to be the last car that we test. Again, another car that had been suggested to me that might be strong around here, so I thought definitely worth jumping, do the 5-lap test and see how it performs. What you kind of get about the Hyundai Genesis is very, very solid car. A little bit understeery in the slower corners, but in terms of lap time, very consistent. 56.7, 56.7, 56.3. We actually binned it on the last lap, so ignore the lap time here. Kinda, it's there and thereabouts, isn't it? A 156.3, lacking in straight line speed a little bit, 153 over at the start finish line. But yeah, that is going to be it for the car testing. Did we come to any solid conclusions? Well, as you've seen, a good number of the cars that we tested were very close in terms of lap time, and just a couple of mph between them in terms of straight line speed. The car that did stand out in terms of lap time was the Lamborghini, but was that lap a little bit of an outlier? I'm not 100% sure. The Ford Mustang seemed very consistent as well, but ultimately the good news is, hopefully it does look like there should be a good number of competitive cars around this track. But this race all is going to boil down to that slipstream, so as long as you've got a car that's fairly capable within a couple of attempts of the best car, you should be able to use that slipstream to then hold on, and this race becomes very much a tactical battle of holding on to the main group at the front, using that slipstream to stay with each other, and then it all comes down to the last lap. So it should be a good race. There should be a variety of cars that are possible to use. There should be some tactical strategy in there, if not any kind of pit stop strategy. And ultimately it should be pretty good fun, if a little bit stressful. I do tend to find slipstream battles, tactical slipstream battles, quite stressful. You're always very close to the car in front, you're always very close to the car behind. But yeah, that's how this one is going to boil down. There's no pit stop strategy, there's very little tyre wear, there's no fuel worries. Everybody is going to be very close come the end of the race. Now, would this race have been better with a bit of a pit stop strategy? I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. The current tyre wear model has very much negated the sort of strategy options that we used to have under the old tyre wear model, the old tyre wear model, original Gran Turismo 7 tyre wear model. We could see that from last week's Group 3 race at Suzuka. The sort of deviation you could do on strategy was 1 lap, and to do that kind of additional lap you had to massively tyre save and more often than not actually run out of tyres at the end of the race. So we are going to be looking possibly at that in a video in the new year, about how maybe PD could start introducing strategy again with this current tyre wear model. But at the moment, with the high multipliers, it doesn't really work, and if you make the multipliers too low, it doesn't really seem to work that well either. But I think that's pretty much it for this one. Yeah, Slipstream Fest, Bump Draft Fest, hopefully some different cars out there. Don't worry about your tyres and your fuel, it's a sprint from start to finish. Let's finish off the video by taking a look at this lap in the Lamborghini Huracan. As I said, this lap, a little bit of an outlier in terms of lap time, so let's use that as the guide. As we come down to the start finish line, you're looking for that sort of double yellow line on the inside. Where that ends is your kind of braking reference for turn 1. On the brakes, trail braking down into turn 1, trying to get the car both slowed down and rotated. Avoid the tyre barrier on the inside. You will see a few people hit that over the course of the week, you always do, it's always funny. Coming up towards the International Horseshoe, now you're looking for the road on the right hand side, the cones there as well. Just before them is my braking reference again, get it into the apex there, get it rotated on the throttle as early as possible. You get a decent little bit of a run down towards the next braking zone. Left hand kink here is full throttle, but do be careful going side by side with another car through there, because it can see you get spewed off into the infield. And again, the road on the left hand side, find a marker there as your reference point for the third kind of hairpin part of the track. Again, on the throttle nice and early, you're looking for the road on the right hand side this time, just so maybe halfway down that yellow curve just after the road is my braking reference. You can brake a little bit later in the Group 4 cars. Very important to get the car rotated, get a good exit on the throttle nice and early, carry that speed all the way down to the bus stop chicane. Approaching the braking point for the bus stop chicane, you're looking for the marker boards on the wall above your head there. You're looking for between the 1 and 2 marker board. There's also like a kind of black and orange little box as well, so just before that is what I use as my reference point. You can be pretty liberal with the curbs into the bus stop chicane as well, but I did make sure that if you cut them too much, you still can pick up a half-second penalty, because some of the lines I had took in the testing definitely got penalties in the past. Now, it wasn't like I was kind of really exploiting them, as some people will as the week goes on, but yeah, I did kind of think, you know, you can actually really attack the curbs into the bus stop, but if you do take too much or try to get too crazy with the cut, then you certainly will pick up a half-second penalty. I predict some trouble with lap times in qualifying over the course of this week. Possibly intervention might be required from PD to stop that. But yeah, crossing the start finishing line there for a 155.7, very good lap in the Lamborghini, much quicker than anything else we did. But I do believe it was a little bit of an outlier, just a lap that maybe kind of nailed. I don't think it's half a second faster than every other car out there. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one. I think it's going to be a fun week. Yep, there's no strategy, but I don't think this race really required it. I think there's enough about this race to make it interesting enough as it is, with the bump draft and the slipstreaming, the threats of the penalties, the last lap battle. Should be good fun. We'll definitely be live streaming it a number of times over the course of the week. Do join me for them if you can. I do appreciate your company. If you're new to the stream, do say hello. You'll find the chat a friendly place. Everybody's really nice. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully it's been a useful video, and I shall catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.